Hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to Strange and Stranger, a podcast of a strange girl talking about strange things. Rambling is an art. Hello Internet, welcome to today's episode, which I'm currently re-recording because about halfway through recording this podcast, my nose started dripping with velocity. It was ridiculous. And so when I listened to it back, I was like, wow, basically all you can hear is me sniffing. That's just horrific. So, attempt number 2. In my last episode, I talked about millennials and whether or not I thought I fit into that category. I don't think I came up with a really definitive answer, but what I thought I would talk about today would be a group of people that I definitely know that I fit into, and that is TCK, third culture kids. So I did a little interneting, to find out what the internet said. So TCKs, third culture kids, or transcontinental kids, some people have put it, and one really quite pompous article decided that they were third culture individuals, because a lot of us grow up to be adults, and so we call ourselves adult TCKs, and I guess they wanted to be third culture individuals. Who knows? Whatever. I referred to myself as an adult TCK, so I'm just going to ignore the audacity of deciding to come up with a new acronym, because, there's not enough acronyms in the world. Anyhow, quick backstory. My family is actually from 4 continents. We do quite well. My father was born here in Melbourne, Australia. My mother was born in Pennsylvania, America. Pennsylvania, Australia, that'd be ridiculous. Pennsylvania, America. And I was born in Virginia. Then my first brother was adopted from somewhere in the Ural Mountains of Russia. If you ask me to be more specific than that, the western side. And then we adopted Jeremy from Kenya. So we span 4 continents, yet all of us live currently in Australia. My parents were also missionaries, so we've spent time on multiple continents, primarily being America, Australia, and Africa. Most of that time being in Kenya. So I really fit the box of third culture kid. So I'm just going to quickly, so if you listen to my last podcast about being a millennial, millennials love listicles, and I found a listicle on being a TCK, so I'm quite excited. So BuzzFeed, of course, has come up with a listicle. They're great at that. So according to sociologist David C. Pollock, who is one of the first people and one of the biggest names in TCK defining, is come up with this definition. A third culture kid is a person who has spent a significant part of his or her developmental years outside the parent's culture. The TCK frequently builds relationships to all of the cultures while not fully having ownership in any. Although elements from each culture may be assimilated into the TCK's life experience, the sense of belonging is in relationship to others of similar background. I thought that was just summed it all up. I wouldn't call America home, yet when people ask where I'm from, I say Richmond, Virginia, because that's where I was born, and it's the simplest of answers. when I lived in Kenya, Kenya was home, but now that I no longer live there, it doesn't quite feel like home anymore. But anytime I go back, it automatically feels like home again. I'm in Melbourne at the moment, so I guess Melbourne's home at the moment. My philosophy on life has been home is where you put your head down on the pillow. So anyhow, let's go through this listicle. You know you're a TCK when? So the first one, right off the bat, is you can curse convincingly in at least 5 different languages. That's probably not true of me anymore, mainly because my memory sucks. But as a teenager, that was definitely true. There was a group of us when I lived in Kenya. We went to a expat school, so it was mostly expats. But we had Koreans and Japanese, Chinese, English, Irish, Swedish, Norwegian. So we learned to swear in all of the languages. It was great. And being that most of the teachers only spoke English, Spanish, Swahili, French. It was an American school, so Spanish and French were the languages. We could get away with quite a lot. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with that one. Alright. Number 2. To everyone's confusion, your accent changes depending on who you're talking to. Yes, this is very, 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 very true. So this is probably how I speak most often to, the internet. Hello, internet. Hello to you specifically, whoever's listening to this. Hugs and kisses to you. You're now my favorite person. In Australia, this is how I often speak. However, when speaking to someone whose language, English is not their first language, my accent changes to enunciate different syllables to try and help give clues to the person, to sort of communicate this to them. I guess the best example is I used to work most recently in a pharmacy in the CBD, and we had a lot of Chinese immigrants who spoke little to no English. They hold their phones up with a picture and you sort of showed them to the product. My accent definitely changed when I was speaking to them. And then when I go back to the United States, a country which I hold a passport for, my accent changes greatly, because if I were to speak like this to them, I would sound foreign, which is kind of ridiculous because everybody takes my accent as American or Canadian, I do have a bit of a broad accent, and I've lost my twang, my drawl, and I try really hard not to say y'all anymore, but it sort of confuses people, and people go, oh, where are you from? Not wanting to ask if I'm Canadian or American. So Siri does not understand my voice. If I put it on an American English, she doesn't reckon I'm an American. If I put it on Australian English, she doesn't reckon I'm Australian. If I put it on British English, she just really is confused. So I have a unique accent. I call it my accent, the me accent. Alright, number 3. You often slip into foreign slang into your English by mistake, which makes you unintelligible to most people. Yes, okay, so this is true. But mainly it's just English slang, but it's American English versus Australian English. Oftentimes when speaking to American friends of mine, they think I'm ridiculous. I've gotten quite into the habit of using everyday Australian terms, and that doesn't really translate into American English. So yeah, and even funnier is right below that is a GIF. If you want to call it a GIF, you can, but you're wrong. Of Mean Girls, which came out in 2004. I moved from Kenya to the US in 2006, meaning this movie was more culturally relevant to my life than I really wanted it to be. Go back, watch the movie. That was my life. I moved back to the States. I made friends. Then the popular kids decided they liked me. I became friends with popular kids, completely forgot about the other people, and then later decided didn't really like the popular kids and went back to my original friends. So, well, I mean, it was a little bit less dramatic than Mean Girls, but it had more than enough similarities to make me uncomfortable. So moving on to number 4. You're really good at calculating time differences because you have to do it every time you call your parents. So yes and no. This is why smartphones are great, because I can just keep time zones on my phone and I don't have to do the math in my head, because there's probably about 4 time zones that I keep track of, and no, I'm not gonna do that math in my head. I do know that my friend in Israel, I can start messaging her after about 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. here. I have no clue what time that is there for her, but she starts replying after about that time. So yeah. 5. But your computer also is programmed to help you when your math fails. Yes, my phone is my life. I would not survive without my phone. This is just plain truth. Okay, number 6. You start getting birthday wishes several hours before your birthday from your friends further east than you. So a little bit backwards, because I'm in Australia, I start getting birthday wishes from my friends here at the correct time, and then my friends in America about 16 hours later start deciding to wish me happy birthday. Yeah. Also, I'm playing with my fidget spinner, if you hear that. I love my fidget spinner. It helps me concentrate. I'll be completely honest. I'm not an adult that's like, what is this fidget spinner? It has no purpose. Its purpose is to make me happy. Alright, so number 7. Your passport looks like it's been through hell and back. That would be true, except I have 2 passports. So if I'm leaving Australia, when I leave Australia, I leave on my Australian passport. When I enter America, I enter on my American passport. Leaving America, I leave on my American passport, and then entering back into Australia, I enter on my Australian passport. So no stamps required. And often there are a lot of countries in the Commonwealth where I'm not required to get a passport if I'm there for a short period of time. And so therefore, no stamp. Before that, though, a lot of times in my younger passports, so I've got a lot of old passports. I'd say I probably have about 4 passports in my possession that I can no longer use because they're expired. They have quite a few stamps on them. Best Christmas present, and I'll talk about this another time a bit more in depth, was getting to raft down the Nile. Oh my goodness, brain fart. So if you go to the source of the Nile, you can then raft. We did I think just a half a day or a day. Yeah, we did a full day. But you can do half a day, a full day. You can do up to 5 days of rafting on the Nile, which was probably one of the highlights of my life. So yeah, there was a couple of different fun, it's an actual piece of leather that's like stitched into your passport. That was pretty cool. Yeah, no, I really like that. So I have a lot of passports, especially because traveling a lot as a kid, you're only allowed to have a passport for 5 years, because you look so different. But they don't necessarily look ridiculous. Alright, number 8. You have a love-hate relationship with the question, where are you from? I just hate it. I hate the question. I just simplify the question. I just say, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. It's not really where I feel like I'm from, but it's where I was born. It's what my birth certificate says, so it's just easier. I've given up on the complicated answers. A lot of times some people try and give the complicated answer. I've given up. They just want an answer. They don't actually want to know. And so yeah, I always just say Richmond, Virginia. But it's not really what I feel. So I kind of just hate that question. Alright, number 9. You run into your elementary school friends in unlikely countries at unlikely times. Now this is a plausible thing that could happen to me in my future. My elementary friends consisted of homeschooled Americans, a Brazilian family, a family from Cameroon, and South Africans. So, yeah, but I live in Australia now. However, there is a fun story where we were in holiday in Kenya and happened to run into my mother's third cousin, who happened to also be in holiday, doing a safari tour through Kenya. And they were like, oh, hey, we haven't seen each other since childhood. So my mother's definitely had that experience. Alright. 10. You've spent an absurd and probably unhealthy amount of time on airplanes. Oh, yes, okay. So this is a great one. I have a fantastic ability. Superpower, you might even want to call it. So there's this thing. So for one of my jobs, I used to travel around Australia. And so we used to have flights that were 1 hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, things like that. But in my lifetime, I've also traveled, and it's been 16-hour flights, 21-hour flights. So no matter the flight, when the airplane goes up and the cabin pressure changes, I become sleepy and I fall asleep. Just sitting there, probably snore, probably irritate everybody on the airplane, but not my problem. And then as we descend and the cabin pressure changes again, it wakes me up. And it's a brilliant way to fly. In-flight entertainment. So I used to fly before in-flight entertainment was a thing. I remember as a kid, my parents, when I was small enough, used to let me sleep on the floor underneath their legs. Luckily, I was a small child. And I'm going to dob my mom in here a bit. She used to give me Dramamine just to knock me out because I was a really talkative kid on trips. And she didn't want to deal with that, so which I totally understand. So there's just this thing where when on airplanes, I don't have trouble sleeping. And it's brilliant because I get on an airplane, I sleep, I wake up, and I'm in my destination. Long haul flights, sometimes I'll wake up, go to the bathroom, have a bit of a meal, but I rarely ever fully wake up for these types of things. Anyhow, it's a great skill to have, let me tell you. Alright, number 11. And you definitely know your way around jet lag recovery. Yes, I have an entire routine on jet lag recovery. Multivitamins, no napping, going to bed at 9 p.m. every night, and waking up at 7 a.m. every morning, no matter how you feel, for 1 week, and you're good to go. Don't know, works for me, may work for you, may not work for you, but it's a thing. Number 12. Your list of significant others' nationality reads like a soccer World Cup bracket. Yeah, we're at 7, I believe. 6 or 7. Anyhow, yes, that is true. Very true. Moving on. Number 13. And your circle of best friends is politically, racially, and religiously diverse as the United Nations. Yes. And speaking of the United Nations, as a teenager, I was slightly too absolutely obsessed with the United Nations. My school had this great opportunity because we were in Nairobi, Kenya, and it's like the 3rd best United Nations in the world or something like that. We actually got to do our mock United Nations at the actual UN in their actual meeting halls. And I was nerdy enough to like actually become a chairperson, and I was just absolutely convinced I was going to become part of the United Nations when I grew up. Going to uni, I then took a politics course and decided that no way was I going to do that. Politics sucks. So that dream was quickly shattered. But I do have a deep love of the United Nations. 14. So referring back to the group of friends, it is great, except you hang out more online than in real life. I remember AOL Messenger. That used to be our life. Now it's Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or Viber. Yeah, like I said, there's like 4 different time zones that I keep track of people in, and so yeah, yeah. And this is cute though, the little cartoon. It says, meh, some nights typing hug just doesn't cut it. It's kind of true, but anyhow, moving on. 15. So when you do see your best friends, you lose a little. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I was ever to get to see my best friend in Israel, that she and I would just hug and scream and cry for like a couple of days straight. Like that would just be like, we'd have to mark out a couple of days of the holiday to just like, oh my gosh, yeah. And the little gif is, of course, of the hobbits reuniting in Rivendell, and they're so adorable. Footnote, side note, extra note, note upon note, whatever you want to call it. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Tolkien. By my bed right now, I have Tolkien and the Great War, The Threshold of Middle-earth by John Garth. It's been quite an interesting read thus far. Recommend, but I would recommend anything that has even the slightest notion of Tolkien in it. Number 16. You have had the most rigorous sensitivity training of all. Real life. Yes, this is very true. Different nationalities and different cultures have very different expectations, and you just quickly learn that you act different around different people because, you know, some people, and even between Americans and Australians, and I'm asked a lot of times what the biggest difference between Americans and Australians are culturally, and maybe that'll be my next sort of podcast. But one of them is there are different things culturally that you don't really know until you're in the situation, and you just sort of have to deal with these things. But the biggest one would be tea. That's the biggest difference. The way you take your tea. Alright, 17. You get nervous whenever a form needs you to enter a permanent address. Yes. When I first moved to Australia, I signed myself up for the MCC waiting list, and still probably like 14 years away from it. But I ended up putting a friend of my father's address because I knew they'd be living there for a while, and I had absolutely no idea what my address. And since moving to Australia in the last 6 years, I've had about 10 different addresses. So yeah, no, definitely. My address has changed, and my postcode's changed so fast that it's ridiculous. But I'm okay with that. 18. You know that McDonald's tastes drastically different from country to country. Yes, completely true. Serving sizes are different, menus are different, because different cultures want different things. Like, duh. Cute story. When I was little, when my dad would go traveling, he would bring me back a Coke from wherever he was. And so as a kid, I had a Coke collection, a Coca-Cola. Let's not go crazy here, Internet. Of bottles in different languages and different slogans and things like that. They eventually kind of went off and went wonky and smelled really bad, and so we kind of just had to chuck them out. But for a long time, it was my pride and joy. 19. You're a food snob because you've sampled the best and most authentic of every possible cuisine. Yes. I'm a huge foodie, and yes. And by far, by large, above all else, Ethiopian cuisine. If you are in Melbourne and you need to have a recommendation of Ethiopian cuisine, there's this great little place up in North Melbourne. Don't remember the name, but just Google Ethiopian cuisine, North Melbourne. It's actually cooked by an Eritrean woman. Her husband is Ethiopian, she's Eritrean, but by golly, it's delicious. So, recommend. I also recommend the vegetarian platter, but that's just me. 20. You convert any price into 2 different currencies before making significant purchases. This used to definitely be true. But I still buy some stuff from the US from companies that do actually ship to Australia, which is very few, let me tell you. But the really annoying part is that we both work on the dollar system, but $1 does not equal $1. And so it's really frustrating because you think you know what you're paying for it, but then when it comes out of your bank account, a whole separate amount has come out, which is more generally. And that's really frustrating because you were like, okay, I can pay this much for it. And you're like, oh, but I've actually paid this much for it. I think it's a whole lot easier, especially when I'm ordering from England, euros or pounds or whatever. In my mind, it's not as mentally taxing to have to change it and go, okay, yeah, this is the price I'm paying in Australian dollars. But because they both say dollars, it's a bit of a mental trick, and it frustrates me. Alright, number 21. You don't call it home, you call it passport country. Yeah, not so much anymore, but yeah, when I was a kid, definitely. America was my passport country, and I had to claim that Australia was my passport country as a kid because nobody believed me because I didn't sound Australian, because I never really lived in Australia. But now, I'm trying so hard to say I'm an Australian with an American accent. Australia's culture suits me so much more than America's culture ever did. And so, yeah, I did used to call it passport country. 22. You often find yourself singing along to songs in languages you don't speak or understand. Yes. So in year 8, it must have been, we had a choir teacher, and the song she decided we were going to learn was the Kenyan national anthem. So we learned it in English and Swahili, and to today I can sing, I think it's probably more like 80% now. Every once in a while I get stumbled up. But if I'm looking at the words, I can sing all of the Kenyan national anthem in Swahili. I cannot sing the American national anthem, and I can sing the first verse of the Australian national anthem. However, at a recent ceremony where my mother and brother became citizens, my father and I were a bit smug during the first verse, going, "Oh, yes, we know this. We don't have to look at the piece of paper." And then they started singing the second verse, and my father and I went, "Whoop, all right, look at the paper, because we don't know this verse. Nobody ever sings this verse." So that was a wake-up call. It has 2 choruses, or verses, whatever. Alright, 23. You miss BBM, but Viber and WhatsApp will do for now. I don't really miss BBM. I kind of always hated BBM, but Viber and WhatsApp are great. Facebook Messenger is also really easy. I use Viber for my South American and African friends, WhatsApp for European friends, and Facebook for those who have Facebook. 24. You're the token exotic friend in your non-TCK crew. Yes. So, in my American friendship circles, I was the Australian, which was ridiculous, but whatever. And now I'm the American, the loud American. I am loud and I am crazy, but I don't think that has to do with the fact that I am an American, more to do with my personality traits. So. Also, the GIF is Pocahontas, which I'm from Virginia, so it's just a little amusing. 25. Love it or hate it, you have a strong and well-informed opinion on the IB system. It actually surprises me how many people don't understand what the IB system is. So, IB is International Baccalaureate. It is a system designed to be implemented in any country and be accepted by any country. Mainly because it goes above and beyond any country's education standards, which means it's ridiculously hard. I never went the full IB certificate. However, I did do IB English, which just about broke my brain, so I can't imagine having to have done the rest of it. 26. At the end of the school year, just the end of the school year was always bittersweet because there were so many people who moved away. Yeah, definitely, especially when in Kenya. Like, there was at least 4 people going home for homestays or just going back because their parents were being reassigned. And below it is David Tennant in Doctor Who saying, "I don't want to go," and that makes my heart break a little bit, and now I want to go watch Doctor Who. Right. 27. And no matter how many you say, goodbyes are never get easier. Yes and no. You learn to sort of put up some walls because you know you're going to have to say goodbye to people, especially in high school. So you're sort of friends, but like you learn to sort of distance yourself from somebody when you know they're going to leave, or when you know you're going to leave, you sort of distance yourself from everybody. Or, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just a coping mechanism. 28. But the constant flow of new friends is more than made up for. Yeah, that's true. So like I said, 4 people would leave every year, and then 4 or 5 would enter the next. So you were always being bombarded with new people to learn and get to know, which was always fun. And my philosophy in life is, "Hi, my name's Kat, let's be friends." So yeah, I love new friends. Love them, love them, love them, love them. Bring them on. 29. Now you feel incredibly lucky to have loved ones and memories scattered all over the world. Yeah, that's definitely true. As I look back on my childhood, I used to be really jealous of monocultured people, but now I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything. 30. You know better than anyone else that home isn't a place, it's the people that are in it. Yes, this is very true. People are way more important than possessions. 31. You can't wait to see where your life adventure takes you next. Yep. So I would say that TCKs are very nomadic people. And we tend to like to move around. So currently I'm a bit stuck due to my illness, and that has made that hard, but I have mind adventures and internet adventures, and I really love escapism, and so currently I am immersed in a book called I Am Pilgrim, and it's quite exciting and really good. I recommend it. Read it, listen to it, however you want to ingest it into your brain. It's really quite good. So yeah, TCK, through and through. I would, definitely say that fits my bill. And my family's bill. Like, not only am I a TCK, so are my brothers. And my family, my mother and father are of two different cultures, so that's always an interesting mix of life. But, yeah. Who knows? Anyhow. Alright. So, yes, me. TCK. Adult TCK. If you've got questions or want to know more about anything that I've mentioned, leave me a comment. Feel free to follow me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm not always on Twitter, but I try and check it every couple of days. Wherever you find this podcast, if there's the capability to make comments, please comment. I will try and check them as regularly as possible. I would love to engage with you in some conversation. If you are a TCK and you've got some experiences you'd like to share, let me know. I'd love to discuss them with you. Also, I need to mention that I have a Patreon page. I will link, because I would like to raise money in order to gain some gear so that I can buy a proper microphone, so that you can stop hearing the buzz of my computer in the background, and make this podcast a bit better. If it is my voice that you don't like, or my stories that you don't like, I can't really help you there. But if you'd like to hear what I have to say, but in better quality, monthly subscription to Patreon would really help me to be able to push forward in purchasing new and better equipment. So yeah. But really, follow me on Instagram. I try really hard to make my Instagram stories valid and interesting and exciting. I'd love your feedback. What parts of my life would you like to hear more of? So, until next time, I guess. Keep being wonderful, keep being majestic, and I'm gonna go off and have a nap. Because, that's what's up.